續開我哋第20次嘅
Members, let's get started with our 20th regular meeting of the House Committee. Item 1, confirmation of the minutes of the 19th meeting held on March the 15th. We have received no proposed amendments. Can I take the minutes as confirmed? No matters arising. Business arising from previous council meetings. Legal Service Division reports on bills referred to the House in accordance with Rule 54.4. Legal Advisor. Chairman, the first one is the Pilotage Amendment Bill 2013, where members please refer to LS 33/12 to 13. The bill seeks to amend the Pilotage Ordinance and its subsidiary legislation to enable the renewal of certain classes of licenses held by pilots about to attain or having attained the age of 65 but below the age of 68, and to remove the requirement of compulsory pilotage for certain ships on certain routes, and also some technical amendments. Chairman, the Economic Development Panel was consulted, and members generally were supportive of the legislative proposal, but some members expressed concerns over certain details. Bills Committee. All right, next, please. Chairman, the next one is Air Pollution Control Amendment Bill 2013. The bill seeks to amend the ordinance to remove the power to hand down the technical memorandum, and in its place there will be a new air quality objective in the ordinance, and the Secretary for Environment must review the AQOs at least once every 5 years. The effective date will be the 1st of January 2014. There will be certain transitional arrangement to deal with all these transitional arrangement from the 1st of January 2017. Chairman, all the proposals were taken to the former subcommittee on improving air quality and the subcommittee on issues relating to air noise and light pollution. And according to the information, members did raise quite a number of concerns, and maybe members might wish to set the Bills Committee to look into the details. Bills Committee, Mr. Wuchiwai, Chairman. This is a significant bill. I think is justified for a Bills Committee to be formed. Right? There will be further circulation of invitation for members to join. Legal Service Division report on subsidiary legislation gazetted on March the 15th. Legal Advisor, please. Chairman, there is a total of 4 items of subsidiary legislation. The first one is the Toys and Children's Products Safety Ordinance, amendment of Schedules 1 and 2, Notice 2013. This notice sets safety standards for toys and children's products. This amendment is in relation to the updating of the schedule. The products include baby stummies, baby walking frames, bunk beds for domestic use, and so on. The notice will come into operation on the 1st of July 2013. The idea being that the manufacturers will have enough time to get used to the new arrangement. Perhaps you get the paper over and done with first. Chairman, the next one is under the United Nations Sanctions Ordinance, the UN Sanctions Democratic Republic of the Congo regulation, and there are another two to do with Liberia. All three are similar in nature. For Liberia, there is a provision that will be repealed, and one will be put in place to replace it. And right, LegCo doesn't have the power to amend the notice, and the subcommittee to examine the implementation in Hong Kong of resolution of the UN Security Council in relation to sanctions has the terms of reference covering this. Perhaps we can refer this to Ms. Sit Ho's committee. Now, in relation to the Toys and Children's Product Safety Ordinance, amendment of Schedules 1 and 2, notice 2013, do we need a subcommittee? If not, please be reminded that the deadline for amending the notice is 17th of April or May the 8th if extended. Further business for Council meeting on March the 27th, 2013. Report number 13/12 to 13 of the House Committee in consideration of subsidiary legislation and other instruments. The report covers 9 items of subsidiary legislation, including 5 items made under the New Companies Ordinance, the Securities and Futures Contracts Limits and Reportable Positions Amendment Rules 2013, and the Residential Properties First-Hand Sales Ordinance Commencement Notice. The Secretariat has received notification from a member that he or she will speak on one of the items relating to the New Companies Ordinance, i.e. Companies Directors Report Regulation, as the administration will move a proposed resolution at the Council meeting to amend the regulation and the company's Summary Financial Reports Regulation. Members will have the opportunity to speak on the relevant items. As regards the other 2, since the respective chairman of the subcommittees have indicated their intention to speak, so as chairman of the House Committee, I will move a motion at that Council meeting to take note of the report in relation to these 2 items of subsidiary legislation. Members will have the chance to speak. In accordance with Rule 49E7 of the Rules of Procedure, if the motion relates to more than 1 item of subsidiary legislation or instruments, the debate on that motion may be divided into sessions, each of which relates to 1 or more items of subsidiary legislation. So there will be 2 sessions. The first one will be on the Securities and Futures Contract Limits and Reportable Positions Amendment Rules 2013. And the second session will be devoted to the Residential Properties First-Hand Sales Ordinance Commencement Notice. And members will be given 15 minutes to speak on each occasion. All right, any questions? If not questions, Mr. Leung Chi-chung has replaced his oral question. Bills, first and second reading, Education Amendment Bill 2013. And we will consider this at our meeting on April 12th. Report of the Subcommittee on Import and Export General Amendment Regulation 2013. Mr. Stephen Ho, please. Mr. Wang Ting-kong is otherwise engaged, so Mr. Ho, will you speak on behalf of Mr. Wang? Chairman, we had 4 meetings on the at the subcommittee on import and export general amendment regulation 2013. On behalf of Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, I'd like to make a verbal report on our deliberations. The idea of the regulation is to prohibit the export of powdered formula from Hong Kong as of the 1st of March 2013, except with export license. As regards whether we should legislate to regulate the export of produced powdered formula, members did have in-depth discussion. Members support the initiative to make sure that parents will be able to get access to the powdered formula. But some members suggested that after the regulation has run for a while, we should keep it under review regarding the supply situation to determine whether we should amend or repeal the regulation. We have diverse views regarding a sunset clause to be imposed. The administration said that since the regulation came into effect on the 1st of March, it would be early days to talk about a sunset clause. However, the administration gave the undertaking that the effectiveness will be kept under review, in particular at the time of peak tourism season, like the National Day or Lunar New Year, to ascertain whether parents in Hong Kong or whether the suppliers have improved the supply chain to make sure that there will be adequate supply for Hong Kong parents. Some members object to the regulation because this is against the free trade practice, and they are concerned that this is against Basic Law 115 and also the free trade practices as espoused by the GATT of the WTO. Notwithstanding the free trade practice, Basic Law 115 doesn't impose any restriction on the exports of commodities. The WTO also allows temporary prohibition and restriction. Also, members are concerned that people will be liable upon conviction for half $500,000 fine or 2 years imprisonment. This may be the maximum penalty, and members urge the administration to step up publicity at the boundary checkpoints to make sure that people are aware of all the arrangements. The subcommittee will have another meeting scheduled for the 25th of March. Upon completion of our work, the subcommittee will be submitting a report in writing to the House. Thank you. Right. Please be reminded that the deadline for amendment is April the 17th, and the deadline for giving notice is April the 10th. April 17th. Well, April 17th is the time for debating the budget. So is this going to be before or after the debate? Secretary General? Well, afterwards. Well, that may take us quite a number of days, Chairman. I hope that there would be earlier notices. We have scheduled 2 days, 17th and 18th, for the budget debate, 30 minutes each. Is that right? SG? 15 minutes. 15 minutes. So once we're done with the debate, we get on with this one. Yes. Any comments? If not, position on bills, committees and subcommittees. As it March the 21st, Thursday, there are 5 bills committees and 5 subcommittees under the House and 7 subcommittees on policy issues under panels that are currently in action. There are 3 subcommittees on policy issues that are on the waiting list. The next one is a proposal of Honourable Kwan-yuen to appoint a select committee to inquire into the alleged political interference with the editorial independence of RTHK by Director of Broadcasting Mr. Roy Tang, and to authorize the select committee to exercise the powers under Section 9(1) of the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. I'd like to call upon Ms. Kwan-yuen, 5 minutes, please, and then the members might wish to speak for 3 minutes.
Ms. Mo, thank you, Chairman. I believe many people are familiar with the story of RTHK. A lot of comments have been put forward in the community. The administration has its as is natural duty to safeguard the editorial independence of the RTHK, but we are seeing something exactly opposite, is trampling on the editorial independence of RTHK, that it is not going to enjoy independent editorial rights. People say Roy Tang is the editor-in-chief, and the editor-in-chief should be able to ask questions and give orders. That might be the case, but if a cartoonist has drawn a cartoon to satirize certain people, and the editor-in-chief may say this is overboard, so it is not going to be used, is all right if it is not adopted. But the editor-in-chief will not tell the cartoonist that you have to give a chronology of how the idea came about. The word chronology was actually used, how the idea
and processed. 你咩意思呢？你喺一個嘅
So what do you mean? You are creating some kind of terror, whether it be white terror or red terror, within the structure of the RTHK. Chairman, what is most important is that this so-called editor-in-chief, he has somehow said things that he himself wanted to say. He came here to LegCo not to protect the organization he supervises, nor his staff and their creativity and their rights. He actually did something quite opposite. He openly criticized and attacked his own staff. He was talking about using a Nazi idea in the program Headliner. In fact, that idea was not adopted and reported. Well, a lot of us have had brainstorming sessions. We have had those idea exchange sessions. However, Mr. Roy Tang was already asking for a chronology of the idea, and the staff were saying that this might amount to mental censorship, but then he was only talking about a process of the nurturing of the idea. So please do not play around with words. And also the empty chair incident of the City Forum. The charter only says that this should generally be avoided. Actually, this is in the producer's guidelines. You could instruct them not to do it again, but the word generally was used, that it should generally be avoided. Generally speaking, we would act in a cordial and civilized way. But then, which one of us dare say that you never flared up in front of people? So when generally, yes, but then when it is an extraordinary event, you might adopt an extraordinary measure. All right, this has already passed. But then he was trying to settle old scores, and he was saying that as a public broadcaster, then the embarrassment caused to absentees should be avoided. And of course, people were saying that he was talking about officials or high-ranking officials, but then he again played with words. He said absentees. But on the absentees, high-ranking officials in this incident, you can see that RTHK operates with public money, and the annual allocation is up to $500 to $600 million. So on the one hand, we want to look at the policy. Is the administration racking its brains to adopt measures, not just in terms of cash, but it is trying to so-called dry up RTHK also by doing something else. And let us look at the incident relating to Forever Kwan-yuen. This high-ranking official of RTHK has said in the open that unless he has the protection of the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance, it would be difficult for him to give a full account of what has happened to him. I hope, Chairman, the FTU, I hope really, in particular, FTU councillors will support the RTHK program staff union. And he has said so. He has said that he needs legal protection before he will be happy to tell you what has gone on for him. Mr. Wong Kok Heng, as a councillor from FTU, I speak to object to the proposal by Ms. Claudia Mo. Chairman, from media reports, I am aware that Mr. Roy Tang attended a staff meeting. I could see that he was sincere, he was very relaxed, and there was direct communication with his staff. Of course, we were not there, but after that session, he told the public that, where he should apologize, he did so. Where he should clarify, he did so. Mr. Longhair was standing behind him. He was trying to distract him, but Mr. Roy Tang kept his cool. So he showed a lot of self-confidence. And also, Mr. Roy Tang wears another hat. He is the editor-in-chief. And being so, he should have his own editorial autonomy, and we should respect that. We should not adopt double standards. Chairman, I think the biggest problem is, from my observation, is that as the incident has developed, I believe we should draw a full stop to it. We should not elevate it to very high levels, and we should not politicize it. I would appeal to the management of RTHK that there should be sincere and open discussion amongst the management people, and you should also nurture and build mutual respect and trust so that you can work effectively. I would also appeal to the management and also staff of the RTHK, that is between management and staff. There should be strengthening of sincere, frank, and frequent communication so that RTHK can actually effectively serve the public of Hong Kong. I believe this should come to an end. We should not create more mess of this. Now, talking about setting up a select committee to investigate into Mr. Roy Tang, I think that is quite unnecessary. The LegCo just should not invoke the LegCo PNP ordinance to interfere into the matter, because you're just going to create a mountain out of a molehill. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, the DP and I support the proposal of Ms. Claudia Mo. Ms. Mo mentioned Mr. Forever Si Weng-yun. He told the media that if he was protected by the LegCo PNP ordinance, he would be quite happy to come to LegCo to give a full account of what he went through. I think this is a good forum for both parties to speak their mind. And you might be aware of certain reports. The reports might not always be accurate and true, but then there are accusations in these reports saying that there has been an email sent from Roy Tang to Forever Z saying that Mr. C would be promoted if he would stop there and then. And this has sown seeds of doubt in our minds. I think there should be a proper investigation so that the parties could be cleared of the accusations directed against them, if the accusations are indeed unfounded. Or else, this will linger on, and maybe a few years down the road, this is going to come back to visit us. I agree that this should come to an end, but at this moment, if Mr. Wong Kwok-heng is saying it should come to an end here and now, it won't, because if you don't expose everything, a second episode, a third episode might come back a few months down the road. You remember, there have been these incidents affecting RTHK once every few years in this past period. And of course, it's very disturbing to the staff of RTHK, and other radio stations are also commenting on whether there has been interference. I believe the prima facie evidence is sufficient for us to start an investigation. And we should not direct any open accusation at anybody, but I believe there is prima facie evidence to start investigation, and I support Mr. Claudia Mo's proposal that we should invoke the electrical PNP ordinance to set up a select committee so that Forever Z and Roy Tang could have the opportunity to answer to the accusations directed against them. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I support Ms. Claudia Mo's proposal. I think there are two reasons behind the RTHK incident. First of all, that the management might not actually know too much about running a radio station. And secondly, the director of broadcasting might not know very well what a PSB is, a public service broadcaster is. Actually, it needs a lot of autonomy. I have heard people say that a PSB is making use of 600 million Hong Kong or public money every year. Well, this is not public money, meaning it is government money, but actually this is tax money from the people. So the important duty of the PSB is that it should act as the mouthpiece of the public and reflect public's views, and not as a mouthpiece of the government. This is well established. And actually, the RTHK has entered into a memorandum of understanding with the government. And people will ask, why do people want to give another person some money so that it will make accusations against you? But as you see, we have the Audit Commission, we have the Ombudsman, we have the ICAC. Does it mean that we want to remove all these organizations because we fund them and yet they monitor and criticize the government? But this is exactly what the government needs. It needs to be criticized and monitored. And also, Roy Tang is an administrative officer. You can see that within the government structure, it is very difficult to find somebody who is a layperson to head a government. Look at the Civil Aviation Department, the Department of Health, etc. It seems they are not headed by laypersons. And therefore, I support Ms. Claudia Mo's proposal. And again, I like to say that the freedom of the flow of information is of utmost importance to a free economy. Look at 1991, Ronald Coase, the Nobel Prize winner. And he said that one of the most important costs in any economic activity is the information cost. If we do not have free flow of information, if the information is incorrect, the cost of any economic activity will be so much higher. So, members, whether you are from the establishment or the Democratic camp, please support the proposal of Ms. Mo. Mrs. Regina Ip, the New People's Party does not support the proposal by Claudia Mo, because we are of the view that the electrical PNP ordinance is the trump card. It should not be lightly used. Only when there are matters relating to overwhelming public interest should we invoke that ordinance. For example, the short piling incident or the fiasco with regard to the new airport. But Ms. Mo has just said that within a government department there is one person who is high-ranking, maybe, and there is just a dispute between this person with the director. Now, has the director used the wrong wording? Has he been non-tactful? Or has he flouted the charter between RTHK and the CED Bureau or the ITB Bureau in the past? I think there should be an internal investigation done by the RTHK instead of having a public pointing of fingers between the two. I think that might not be the most effective way to find the truth, so we do not support the proposal. Mr. Leung Yu-chung. Chairman, every time when we discuss whether we should invoke the PNP ordinance, I think we have always mentioned the same points. Many people are saying we should not create more trouble. But even if we use the PNP ordinance, it doesn't mean that we are always blowing up issues. As you know, the law, this ordinance in particular, may help us to make use of our authority to investigate thoroughly matters in society which are not understood by all people because the truth has been kept, for example, and the RTHK is a media organization which may have an impact on many people because it broadcasts a lot of information, and also this incident might affect its editorial stance in the future. If staff of this station have already said that they are worried, and they have already said that without the protection of the ordinance, they will not be able to give a full account with confidence to the public.
Why is it that we cannot invoke the power that we enjoy to get to the bottom of the matter? We don't really want anybody to be wrongly blamed. Now, you keep saying that this powers and privileges ordinance is a trump card. We should only use it. We should not use it unless it is absolutely necessary. Mrs. Regina Ip talked about the debacle at the new airport. But it is true that we invoked this power on many occasions. The exploitation of the imported labor is something that we invoke the PNP for. Do we have to wait until something as significant as the debacle of the new airport to have this invoked? If something is of concern to the community, we have to do something about it. In particular, if there are implications on the day-to-day life of the general public. As I said, someone feels wronged. Now these are not ordinary people. These are people working in that organization. So if you keep advancing this argument, then I think we're all too familiar with them. I hope that you would come up with new excuses, new reasons for objecting to this idea. I support the motion. Ms. Sitho, I think we ought to conduct an investigation. We keep talking about freedom of the press. When it comes to the crunches, we do not practice what we preach. The editorial independence of RTHK is not something for Roy Tang alone. The editorial independence should not be interfered with. Roy Tang is not suited for this job. He's not suited to exercise the power. His training, his background, before he became director of broadcasting, was irrelevant to was not relevant to RTHK. I don't think the job should be handed over to Roy Tang. There was an open recruitment, but they couldn't find anybody, and Tai Kin Man wasn't considered to be the right choice, and an AO was parachuted into the job. Now, given his background, if he doesn't interfere with the editorial independence, probably there would be no problems. Now, Roy Tang doesn't have the expertise here, and he is wielding this sort of Damocles, and he's asking the staff to give an account, a chronological account of what they did. This is interference. Now, the editor of Common Sense, Mr. Puntapui, said that Mr. Franklin Wong asked him whether that there was pressure. Now, the decision has been taken by the editorial staff, and by the time before it is aired, the director of broadcasting came and asked whether there were 4 episodes, whether some editing has to be done. I think this is political pressure. I would support an investigation. I would suggest this for Ms. Claudia Mo. Certainly we would be doomed to failure when it comes to voting. In fact, we do have a panel chaired by Mr. Raymond Wong. Probably we cannot invoke the powers and privileges ordinance, but this panel can schedule the meeting in such a way that we can invite both the management and the RTHK staff to the meeting. And I hope that the pro-establishment members will not be exercising the tyranny of majority and vote it down. And I urge Ms. Kwan-yuen to go back to the panel and ask Mr. Raymond Wong, the chairman, to invite both parties to the panel for a meeting first. Mr. Gary Fan, chairman, as a new member here. I've been here for 6 months, but on many occasions I've heard from the pro-establishment members who said that we're not supposed to use a nuclear bomb to get rid of the mosquitoes, or we should not use this trump card. Now, freedom of journalism, freedom of the press are the core values that are very dear to our heart. Why do you think that this is an insignificant issue? The New Democrats and myself are in support of this motion by Ms. Kwan-yuen to invoke the PNP to investigate into the alleged attempt by Roy Tang to interfere with RTHK's editorial independence. And as one of the powers of the three branches of Hong Kong, we should do something to protect the fourth power in Hong Kong. This is no small matter. Roy Tang has been parachuted in RTHK for 18 months, and in a systematic manner, he tried to turn RTHK into a government's mouthpiece. And this is not conducive to effective monitoring of the governance. A year or so ago, we saw that Roy Tang got rid of Robert Chow and Ji-sum. Their program was pulled, and in a brutal way, Roy Tang interfered with the TV section and their production. Forever Z, over the years, has been very liberal in his editorial style, and he has a wealth of experience behind him, and he's not prepared to take on any political mission. But as a result, for some minor charges, Mr. Forever Z faced the prospect of no promotion, and he's has to contend with this prospect of being fixed, and this is not something that RTHK or the people of Hong Kong would like to see. And I hope that the members and the pro-establishment members would think twice about it. We do have the justification to invoke PNP. Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. Chairman, thank you. Well, Mr. Wong Kwok Hing has stated the FTU's position. We will not support this idea. The reason is very simple. I think that we're making a mountain out of a molehill by invoking PNP here. This is merely a personal dispute within the organization. The whole matter has been politicized. People are playing this up out of all proportion, and they are lumping this in with freedom of the press and freedom of speech and freedom of journalism and so on. Mr. Gary Fang has got a point, and this is an insignificant issue, and I mean, for some insignificant reasons, they are invoking the PNP. I mean, it makes me think of a shoal of sharks that gravitating towards blood. Do we have to come to that? It also makes me think of what happened not so long ago, the farce involving Mr. Jeremy Godfrey. I mean, is it really the same idea? Mr. Forever Z said that he's feeling some considerable pressure, and therefore we have to invoke PNP in order for him to give their expose about the whole thing. I think this is similar to what Mr. Jeremy Godfrey had to say. If you can come up with a compelling argument, if you're telling the truth, you don't really have to be worried. about being accused of telling lies, or you don't have to be worried about being sued for defamation. If you're telling the truth, I'm sure that everybody would accept it. Now, without any facts being substantiated, you are suggesting that we should invoke PNP to find out about the facts. I think the more I hear about it, and the more I find it, the more difficult I find it to support the invocation of the PNP. Mr. Charles Mok, well, it's lucky that I get the floor before, after Mr. Wong Kwok-kin. Perhaps Mr. Wong didn't follow what happened with the e-inclusion program. We did invoke the PNP to investigate the Godfrey issue, and as a result, this allegation that some senior officials gave the job to this organization to get on with the e-inclusion program, and that organization has been sacked. I know that Mr. Ken Leung has written to the Director of Audit to urge an investigation. Maybe we have to come back to this issue, and we may need to invoke a PNP to investigate into that as well. I'm afraid you picked the wrong example. Personal dispute. I think apparently this may sound as if this is personal dispute, but in fact the government or the pro-establishment members are depicting the issue in that particular light. We're not sure what's going on. Now, this is exactly the same as Mr. Jeremy Godfrey, what Mr. Z is doing. I don't really want Mr. Z to become another Jeremy Godfrey. Mr. Z understands the PNP mechanism, and he's in journalism. I'm sure that he knows what he can say and what he cannot say. So I think we have to we have the obligation to let not just Mr. Z, but also RTHK staff have an opportunity to state their views. Now, this is the poster given to me by the RTHK staff. Effectively, this is saying that they cannot tolerate any thought policing. I'm not sure why people think that this is insignificant. I'm not sure why they think that we are playing up the matter. Now, like Mr. Chen said, what is fake cannot be made true. What is true cannot be faked. Now, if someone is innocent, then it is the only thing we would do would be just to waste a bit of time. But I'm sure that we will not be wasting our time, and this is not an insignificant matter that is being played up. Mr. Lee Cheng-yan. Why he stepped out? Chairman, thank you. Mr. Wong Kwok-kin mentioned Jeremy Godfrey. I'm grateful to him for that. It's just like what Mr. Charles Mok said. Yesterday we had Mr. Godfrey. Today we have Mr. Forever Z. Before we had Jeremy Godfrey terminated in his contract, and we didn't carry out any investigation. Now this we know that there has been some bias in relation to the inclusion program, and today Mr. Forever Z said that there was political interference. There was really thought policing by Roy Tang. Now, Mr. Wong Kwok-kin, you are a unionist, are you depicting the whole thing as merely a personal dispute? The RTHK staff union is saying that this has everything to do with editorial independence. The whole RTHK has been manipulated by Roy Tang in his capacity as director of broadcasting. The editorial independence is being interfered with. And they are making this petition, and you are depicting this as if someone is trying to play the matter up, which is insignificant. When are you going to respect the views of the RTHK staff? The whole thing is very, very clear. It's not a matter of the RTHK staff. It is an issue for the whole of Hong Kong. If they can get away with interference with RTHK, then RTHK will become a propaganda tool for the government. How is it different from the national education? How is it different from brainwashing? National education happens in schools. Brainwashing of the whole of Hong Kong is happening in RTHK.
And what is left for Hong Kong? We don't have democracy if there is less room for freedom of the media and freedom of speech. I don't know what is there left for Hong Kong that we can treasure. I think our core values are being eroded. I think this is an important matter. If we don't investigate into it, I don't think we are doing justice to the freedom of the press in Hong Kong. If we do not investigate, we do not know what the government has done by way of interference. Mr. Forever C has already said that he would like an investigation. Mr. Albert Ho, Chairman, I heard what Mr. Wong Kwok Kin say. I really can't hold back myself. I really have to say something. If he adopts such a perspective, then we know why when the press have been beaten, he said that it was a politicization. He said that the press were in the way, and there was just a knocking down of somebody because there was pushing and shoving. So from this matter, do you think that the staff would like to come out and stand against their supervisor like that? I don't think anybody would want to do that. What we are faced with today is that from what we can see as of now, well, Roy Tang can certainly defend himself later, but this is not just a matter of safeguarding freedom of the press and independence of editors. Mr. Roy Tang is not defending these. He is acting like a bouncer for the administration. This is so worrying. Roy Tang can certainly defend himself. He can submit all the facts and data and come clean. If he doesn't, now, people are saying that he himself was wronged, that he was forced to take the blame. But why does he think that he can keep this away from the public eye forever? Something has already happened. Something important has already taken place, so that within RTHK, there are these serious conflicts. This is not just a conflict between management and staff. So please do not cover your eyes, because if you do so, you are blind to the truth. The press, the reporters were beaten up in Beijing, but then you said that it's just because they were blocking people's ways. How can you say something like that? Mr. Tam Yu Chung. Thank you, Chairman. Last Saturday, the media were asking me whether there should be an independent select committee set up. I already registered our stance, and the DAB thinks that it is not necessary. We believe that this is something that has happened within the management and also between management and the staff, that there have been some misunderstanding and arguments within the organization. We believe there should be face-to-face communication so they can find a solution. I have heard Ms. Claudia Mo. He was expressing herself in both English and Chinese, and I have heard from other pan-democratic members that there should be an investigation. But I believe there is still not enough justification. there are many departments within the administration, and the management in these departments might have different views, they might have arguments, and also there might be such between the management and staff. If all of them would ask the LegCo to do investigation and then we really do it, I don't think that is appropriate. And some Democratic members have said that this will have an impact on freedom of information and freedom of speech. I don't think there is any relationship between this and these freedoms. Some people say we need to find the truth about this incident, but the LegCo is not a law enforcement agency or an investigative department. This is not our main role. The DAB does not know Roy Tang very well. We have no bias against him. We have no liking towards him either. But it seems pan-democratic members are extremely unhappy with this director of broadcasting, that they would really like to bring him down. And that's why they would like to embark on an investigation. It seems they have already have this preemptive stance. And also there was talk of the tyranny of the majority. But what about the minority? The minority can also act in a violent manner. I remember after Roy Tang met the staff, the RTHK phone-in program also received a lot of calls, and many of the callers also were of the view that we should not blow up the incident anymore, that the staff should concentrate on producing good programs for the public. So that was the view of many callers in that evening. Therefore, we are of the view that there is no need for us to invoke the LegCo PNP ordinance to set up any select committee. Mr. Christopher Chung, Chairman, we were talking about the digital radio, and there was a political persecution and also persecution from the Western quarters, etc. And now it has become a commercial dispute, and people accepted the money and nobody said anything anymore. And this morning you said that there should be an investigation into the ADC, and now you are talking about investigation into RTHK. I think you are really asking for or creating trouble. I think to resolve this matter is very easy. Just create more channels for communication, more effective communication between staff and the management. I believe a lot of the misunderstanding can be cleared up. As councillors, we have our special privileges. However, we should not misuse our privilege to create white terror. We should not violently interfere into the internal workings of the department. We should not create trouble. Mr. Paul Chair, of course, Ms. Claudia Mo is creating trouble if she really moves such a motion. Let us look at the charter of RTHK in paras 8 and 9. It is clear that the director of broadcasting is responsible and accountable for editorial decisions taken by RTHK program producers. Now let us talk about other people who are high-ranking officials who might seek to influence the director of broadcasting in terms of editorial independence. Or are we talking about intra-decisions, so-called intra-decisions within RTHK? You may have a different political view. If staff members may have different views, and if that is construed as intervention into editorial independence, then we don't know. But if you look at the Civil Service Regulation 7.55, it is clear that if different supervisors, whether they be within the civil servants or if they are politically accountable officials, if there has been undue influence, there can be different channels for voicing their grievances. So if any staff feel that they are under pressure, they should make use of these channels. And also we want to safeguard our core values, whether it be freedom of speech, freedom of the editorial people. Then should we be talking about some values or independence of the judiciary, so to speak. Different levels of courts might have different views, and they may argue over certain cases. But does it mean that there is already intervention into the independence of the judiciary? I don't think we can say that this is amounts to intervention into the freedom of speech and lose our sight of where this incident should be positioned. Does it mean that every time you have to call this an intervention into the freedom of speech so that we want to interfere with invoking the ordinance? I don't think that is the case. And Ms. Sit-ho spent a lot of time on the lack of confidence in Roy Tang that he should step up. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the political correctness of the appointment of Roy Tang, or are we talking about some systemic problem in RTHK, that there is undue influence on editorial independence, or is it that a major incident has happened because of the powers exercised by Roy Tang? You are saying that he should step down. Now, if that's the case, then we should still do it according to the correct procedures. We should look hard at the nature of the incident. Mr. Alan Leong, Chairman, Ms. Claudia Mo has asked that we invoke the PMP ordinance to investigate into the ordinance so that Mr. Forever Z can speak with no worries. And she did not mention that Roy Tang should step down. That is not the purpose of our proposal to invoke the PMP ordinance. That is why I fail to understand what Paul Chair was saying. I have been here. I have been in my seat all this time. If you view this as an isolated incident, then you are childish. RTHK has been under pressure. It has not happened today. It has happened for many years. Since the handover, Shi Simin talked about RTHK in a certain language, and also Mr. Puntat Pui said in Next Magazine he was an experienced producer of the common sense. Is it that you have not read the article and you have decided to turn a blind eye to this? So, Chairman, it's clear that this is not an isolated personnel problem. When C.Y. Leung assumed office, there was widespread talk of his having 4 political missions, and he has already embarked on 3. He did not succeed with pushing for national education, and our Secretary for Education is saying that there would be another tendering exercise to write national education curriculum. Well, that remains his mission, it seems, to have a less than true universal suffrage. I think C.Y. Leung is acting on that already, and also allowing RTHK to die silently. I think that is happening already, and Article 23 of the Basic Law legislation is just around the corner. We should safeguard the creative autonomy of a public service broadcaster. This is something major. We should not dismiss it as an isolated personal dispute issue. So the Civic Party throws its weight behind Ms. Claudia Mo's proposal that we should conduct investigation according to the PMP ordinance. We are also of the view that it is worth our while doing this because the public interest is being challenged. Now, after the investigation, when we have bared all the facts, what should be the way forward? Well, that should be for later. I hope members will support this proposal. Ms. Emily Lau? Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, many of us are aware of what is happening to RTHK. Many of us here have a part to play in this. Many who are pro-CCP are against the RTHK. C.H. Tong has said that the programs are of bad taste. But then there are people at RTHK who are producing really high-quality programs. These people are under pressure. Are you aware that on the 15th of March, there was a staff meeting at RTHK? And this should be the concern of labor representatives among us. They were putting up a sticker to say that they could not take it anymore, that they were not going to put up with this anymore. What did Roy Tang say? He took people to task about placing empty chairs at City Forum. And also many people love to watch Headliner. He wanted to silence it. He wanted to move the broadcast of this program to ATV. How many people watch ATV? Can you have your hands up, please? That is why the staff are so nervous. This is the director. This is the editor-in-chief. Mr. Joseph Che Chi-fong has said that he is a layman and he knows nothing about broadcasting, but he is making all the editorial decisions. Isn't that interference? Mrs. Ip says this is just a dispute between the director and staff. Of course not, Mrs. Regina Ip. The question is, Hong Kong would like to have a good public service broadcaster. We have talked about this for very long. But then the administration said RTHK is a PSB, but then it is a government department. Chairman, do you know that high-ranking officials are already saying that why does RTHK bite the hand that feeds it?
I think this is really ridiculous. They leveled the same accusation as at Anna Wu of the EOC. This body has to be impartial. Are we trying to silence everybody and turn everybody into yes men? Any broadcasters, if you turn on the radio, whatever channel it is, they're interviewing the bureau secretaries. A lot of people have been silenced for sure, Mr. Chairman. Why do you say that we're kicking up a fuss? There were problems. I agree with Sid Ho that we should go back to the panel. I'm wondering whether anybody is trying to silence members. And we may have to come back here again. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. By the time we press the button, we will be doomed to failure. Perhaps Ms. Claudia Mo should retract it and we go back to the panel before we come back for more of the same. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, Chairman. Roy Tang is Director of Broadcasting, and he was told that he should not be acting in this capacity because it's difficult for somebody to wear two hats like this. I don't know him personally, but when it comes to the allegations against him by RTHK staff, they are very serious. That you may say that all these RTHK staff are out of their mind. When I visited RTHK, some RTHK staff didn't welcome me. Maybe they were on the side of Roy Tang. They had a meeting, and for those who are working in RTHK, find it wholly unacceptable. Of course, you may say that I'm kicking up a fuss. I may be. But are you saying that RTHK staff are also kicking up a fuss? Especially the FTU members, they are supposed to support the staff. This is the minimum that they should fulfill as unionists. If the staff feel hard done by, they should be standing on their side. Whether we should invoke the PNP here, if you feel that freedom of speech, whether the media can maintain autonomy, it would be difficult with commercial organization, and members would say that the tricolor broadcaster, we shouldn't be too concerned about it because they're not funded by taxpayers' money. But I mean, we are talking about public broadcaster. To be fair, we have to carry out the investigation in the interest of the members of the public. This is a broadcaster funded by taxpayers' money, and this director is wearing two hats. Now he may be the director of broadcasting, and now he may be a government official, and that's simply not on. In the mainland of China, it is possible because they have the propaganda department, but I don't think you can replicate the same in Hong Kong. Mr. Roy Tang should come and tell us how he discharges his duties, and that certainly would be good for us, because we can get to the bottom of the matter, and we can generate more discussion. I think this is going to be time well spent. Does any other member wish to speak? Ms. Claudia Mo? Hang on a sec. Some members suggested that you retract the motion. Are you prepared to do so? If not, then I give you 2 minutes and then I handle the motion. Right, perhaps I would tend to accept the suggestions of Ms. Sid Ho and Ms. Emily Lau. I retract the motion and ask for a public hearing at the ITB panel. I'm grateful to members for their views. I feel really offended that the FTU is not on the side of the RTHK union. I don't have any other business. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.